Hey folks, welcome back. Pop Retro 1 on Instagram and Twitter. Facebook.com/Pop Retro. You can also find me on Patreon at patreon.com/ you guessed it, Pop Retro, without the one there. So, wanted to take some time here and share with you my latest Vinegar Syndrome pickups. These arrived in the mail probably a week or so ago at the end of September. But now that we're in October, I thought I'd put on my orange beanie and get into the spirit of the season. And, Vinegar Syndrome mostly releases, well, not mostly, but many of their releases are horror. So why not kick it off this month, October, with a Vinegar Syndrome video. So here we go. First release up is a 4K UHD. It is the Amityville Horror. So this one is, I guess, an upgrade for me. I don't know if I'll keep this because I'm not really big on upgrading. I'm fine with my Blu-rays, and I got Scream Factory's Blu-ray set from a few years back that had, I think, the first 3 movies in it, maybe the first 4, I can't remember. But it was an Amityville set. And of course, Vinegar Syndrome released a set of their own with some of the later Amityville movies that were released as part of the kind of disjointed series, I guess you could say. But this is a nice looking release. Here's a look at the slipcover. And the 4K Ultra HD plastic case with the shiny 4K labeling up there. And those of you who are into upgrading everything will be excited about this. So this is obviously a, what do you want to call it? A more mainstream or popular or big time title for Vinegar Syndrome, which is usually releases, kind of more obscure stuff. So let's look at the back. Try to get some of this glare off for you, but it is difficult with my exquisite lighting I have here in the Pop Retro studios. Let's see. These also include a Blu-ray. So whenever Vinegar Syndrome releases a 4K UHD, they also include the Blu-ray. So you're safe in upgrading because you do get the Blu-ray edition. And so you're future-proofed for if you decide to go to 4K. I have a 4K equipped TV. I do not have a player though. Let's see. I think there's the slip again, or excuse me, the insert, and I think we got there's the other side. Is that okay to be? All right, there you go. All right. The reversible art, I'm trying to say. So there is reversible art on this release. And there you have it, the Amityville Horror. The question is will VS release the next 2, the ones that Scream Factory put out? Will they upgrade and release those? Because then people will say, oh, well, maybe I'll ditch my Scream Factory set and get this upgrade. So questions. So up next we have Buried Alive. That's right, folks. Edgar Allan Poe's Buried Alive. Now this came out in, I believe, 1989. Yes, 1989, which was around that era when, I don't know, it was very popular to sort of connect your low budget movies to Edgar Allan Poe stories. And I remember even around that time, which is kind of a golden time for me, I was in junior high school, and it was around the time when I was first discovering a lot of slashers and horror movies and things that I had missed from the early 80s when I was really too little to see those and watch those. But this is one of many films that were sort of loosely based on the stories of Poe, and I think it was more of an effort to use Edgar Allan Poe's name to, sort of lend some credence to what you're doing, and perhaps pull in some Poe fans who might say, "Oh, it's Edgar Allan Poe's Buried Alive. I will watch that for sure." I assume though that after a couple of these, more kitschy, low-budget affairs, some people probably got the idea that, well, maybe it's not quite the Edgar Allan Poe that I remember reading from high school back in the 60s or whatever. But anyhow, I enjoy these movies. I think they're fun. And I'm glad to have them on Blu-ray. Let's look at the back. 1989, the end of the 80s. What a sad time that was. There's the disc, and I'll show you the reversible art without taking it out. Can't do that with those 4K UHD black cases, but I can do it here. So, assuming that's probably what you saw on the VHS case back in the day. Actually set up my lights a little different this time around, and it's, I don't know if it's better. I thought it was better at first, but it's giving me more glare when I'm trying to show you these, which is probably not a big deal, but sometimes it also looks like maybe I've washed it out a little bit. Maybe I have too much light going on in here, or maybe I have them just set up not quite right. Now, that is Buried Alive from 1989. Now, that is not to be confused with 1990's Buried Alive, which Kino Lorber released recently on Blu-ray. So this was a 1990 TV movie. So this is not the same thing. When Vinegar Syndrome announced that they were releasing Buried Alive, when I first saw that, I thought, oh man, I just got Buried Alive from Kino Lorber. Totally different movie. So people who are into TV movie releases probably got this for the TV movie, but the Buried Alive from from Vinegar Syndrome, completely different from the one released by Kino. 1990, 1989. They were released, fairly recent from each other though. All right, up next we've got from 1987, again, right in that golden age of schlock cinema, the USA Up All Night age, the late night cable, when late night cable was kind of coming into its own, and people like my age, 10 years old, I was 11 years old in 1987, started watching that stuff. And here we got Mutant Hunt. It's kind of funny, a lot of people I've noticed online just hate Mutant Hunt. They're watching and go, oh, it was boring, it sucked, this and that. And I get it, but I mean, there's a part of me that says, well, what do you think Vinegar Syndrome releases? Not to say that all Vinegar Syndrome releases are boring or that they're low-budget schlock, but it's kind of how they made their name. Exploitation, and also just restoring and making sure that things like this don't get forgotten, don't get left behind in this era of upgrading and high resolution and high definition, and making sure that not just the movies that people saw at the theater that made millions of dollars are the only ones that get remembered in the years to come. And so with that in mind, Mutant Hunt fits the bill, and thankfully they've put it out. I like the synopsis. In the near future of 1992, robots have become a facet of everyday life. Think about that. I mean, this came out in 1987, and they're talking about how robots have become the facet of everyday life in 1992, which is only 5 years later. But that does remind me of growing up in the 80s, how we always thought that, this technological revolution was right around the corner. I suppose we're kind of there in some ways now with the internet, social media, driving cars finally, not flying cars like they've been talking about since the 60s, but back then time moved by so slowly that in 1987 we thought that, oh, maybe in the 90s, in the 90s we're going to have those flying cars and robots are going to be controlling everything. And of course it didn't happen, and the internet finally came around, I guess in the mid-90s, and I didn't get online until 1997. And I feel like, I don't know, it was around probably 2000, 2001 when it seemed like everybody started to have the internet in their homes, or at least the people that I knew. But it is funny how in the 80s we thought that, if we're going to tell a story about the future, let's set it 5 years from now, because things will be really, really different then. When really they were thinking, probably people today, I should say, when they make a movie, they'll say, let's set it 100 years from now, when I'm not alive, to realize how much I should have set it 100 years from now in the future. So anyhow, Mutant Hunt. Oh, I guess I should show you the inside. Did I show you the inside already? I don't think so. So there's Mutant Hunt. There's the disc, the insert, and the reverse insert. Try to get that glare off. There you go. This, I don't know, this is the type of release. This is what I like. This is what I originally liked Vinegar Syndrome for, was releases like this. These obscure releases that you're just not going to see the regular labels, or I should say studios, release. They're not going to release, and in fact, even a lot more well-known movies, just those medium catalog titles that say, like, that Kino Lorber releases. I'm thankful for that, because the studios they're not going to release a lot of that stuff, because they're not going to sell, 1,000 Blu-rays or 5,000 Blu-rays. And studios like that, when they release something on physical media, they want it to sell in the thousands, in the millions, maybe even, or hundreds of thousands, like a Batman movie would. And this is not going to do it. But thankfully, we still get it through boutique labels on occasion, like this. All right, up next, we've got The Iceman Cometh. Now, this is some Asian cinema that I'm not really familiar with. So, was really excited, though, to see this, because it's action. I believe Hong Kong action. Yeah, this has got a couple discs with different cuts of this film, and there's a lot of stuff recently that, at least the talk online has been, oh, more Hong Kong, more Asian action cinema, and so we've been seeing more and more of this. And Vinegar Syndrome has been putting out more Asian cinema, action cinema, I should say. So The Iceman Cometh falls right in line with that. And the synopsis for this one sounds pretty exciting. There's some time travel. There's some fun stuff, it looks like. Here's a look at the inside. Looks like this one comes with, what is that, a booklet? I'll pull that out so you can see the discs. There's both discs. There's the booklet, and then it's not a huge booklet, but got some images and some text that you can read about. Read about the Iceman and why and how he cometh. All right. Finally, one more. I got one more in my stack. I didn't order any partner releases this month, which has been rare. Usually I pick up one or two. And this month, instead of a partner release, I got the VSA, which stands for Vinegar Syndrome Archive, which is Vinegar Syndrome's sub-label for what they call forgotten video store era oddities. Although sometimes the definition's arguable, I would say. And I agree with people who say it's kind of arguable. It kind of seems like a, I don't know, sort of a I don't want to say dumping ground, because that sounds pejorative, but sort of a ground for putting things and releasing things that they're not sure where they're going to release them. It doesn't quite fit into the caliber of, say, their main label, but also they want to get it released, but they know that perhaps maybe a lot of people won't want this if they're subscribers. And that's kind of a rambling way to put it. But anyhow, nonetheless, we've got Red Sun Rising with Don the Dragon Wilson. So, as always, the VSAs unload from the bottom. There's a look at the back of this nice hard case that these VSAs come in. This is a 5,000 limited to edition, and I have number 684. That's one of the lower ones I've gotten, especially recently, when the VSA line has been releasing more and more copies of their editions. I think when they first started out, there were only like 1,000 or 2,000, 1,500 copies of the movies they were releasing for these. But lately, I think because the company has grown, more people have found them. Physical media since Vinegar Syndrome started, I think back in 2012, somewhere around there. Physical media has really for boutique labels has really blossomed and come into its own. So they are selling more. They are more popular, and they're selling more mainstreamy and popular films as a result. This one came out in 1993, and this also has, I guess I should take it out so I can show you. These all come with a poster. It's all folded up in there. I won't take it out though. There's the disc and the reversible art for this VSA. Red Sun Rising. It also has Terry Farrell. And I remember her. She was in a... well, she's been in a lot of stuff, but she was in like I think it was her first thing. It was like a 1980s, early 80s, 1984. It was a nighttime serial like Dallas and Dynasty. It was called Paper Dolls. And I recently just watched it. It only ran for one season. And I think, I don't know, like 20 episodes. Like, I think it ran for almost or quite close to a full season, but didn't quite make it. But it was actually really good in relation to those other serials that were airing at the time. The Dynasties, Knots Landings, Falcon Crests. And so I think it just came a little too late in 1984 to really jump that bandwagon. But Farrell she played like this teenager who was a model. Well, she was just a regular teenager, but wound up being spotted and being said, hey, you should be a model. And so she wound up as one of the, quote, paper dolls. But she was, you could tell even back then, she was a good actress, and you could tell she was going to move on and do some bigger and better things. She never became huge or anything like that, but I always remember her from that, and actually tracked that series down online on YouTube, I think, and gave it a watch about a year ago, and said, wow, this is actually pretty good. So anyhow, she's also in Red Sun Rising, and I've got my piece of paper out here, which I use to put these VSAs back in, because sometimes they just snag. But if you just use a piece of paper like that, you can get it back in without ruining the plastic on your regular Blu-ray case. So there you have it. I'm losing my voice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Vinegar Syndrome releases that I've shared with you here to get October started here on Pop Retro. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back soon with more reviews and some more haul videos coming up soon.